Hey guys, so today we are going to be going over Kaigan considerations in the Gate 5 era. This video is probably going to be leaning more towards Taga players than actual global players, but global players are welcome to join in and learn a couple things because these sorts of things do sort of apply to you, and will also give you a good idea of how you want to go about saving your shards for future Gate 5s if say you're like on the newer end. Most of the people who currently have shards already stored up for their Kaigans in global are going to have absolutely no problem farming these shards ahead of time. So keep that in mind. So let's get right into it. So Gate 4 and Gate 5, what are they? How much do they cost? Well, Gate 4 is going to be 90 extra shards, and it is essentially Gate 1 all over again. It's basically raw stats. Every unit's going to want their Gate 4 maxed if they can. Unfortunately, there are a limited amount of materials in the game to max these gates, so you do need to choose carefully who and what you want to max. There's nothing wrong with raising gate 4 to 4 for the time being and waiting for later to max it out. It's mostly just for HP, and the max is for some extra attack. Now, gate 5 is going to change how an actual attack functions on your kit. Most units will have a skill on each of their jobs changed for this updated skill, and updated skills can do anything from give you extra stats to, like, on the actual skills, changing the typing of skills, like making a typeless skill, let's say a light skill, or changing a skill so it no longer hits allies. There's all sorts of different kinds of effects and changes that have happened to skills, and we are still pretty early in the Gate 5 era. A lot of good units do have Gate 5, but there are still plenty of units who do not have Gate 5, and I'm looking forward to seeing just how well all these turn out. So we're going to go over a couple considerations on how you want to go about maxing some of these Kaigans, because I do think that the Kaigan order for some of these units has changed, especially with respect to supports. So let's get right into it here, and we are going to start with Mela. So I would say that Mela is probably going to be one of your more standard Kaigan orders. However, there is a choice you have to make here. See, Moa's leader skill is 50% HP, 20% all damage, 10% attack, and 20% dark exploit, which is an insanely good leader skill, all things considered. However, you do have to ask yourself, a 50% 20 all leader skill, which is essentially the base here, because that's what's going to let you run the mixed magic and physical attack light teams. Is it worth doing that before investing in Mela, or is it worth using a different unit? Like, let's say if I want to run magic, I could just use Aisha's leader skill instead and just have less HP. That is a decision you are going to have to personally make. In my case, I decided to max out my Mela first. If I'm running a physical attack team, I always run Mela as my leader skill, but if I'm running a magic team, I will run somebody else. Eventually, I will get back to max this gate, but I decided that the other gates were more important. I started by maxing my gate 4 in order to get the extra HP, because Moa frontlines for me most of the time, and she can take some serious punishment with that gate maxed out. As you can see, she's sitting at, I think she has HP. Yeah, she has regen armor on right now, so that is definitely a boost to her HP, but she's sitting at 7.6k without a leader skill. That's an insane amount of HP. The max to her gate 5, let me pull it up here actually, because I do not remember this off the top of my head. I think it changed the way her reactive works, but I just decided that it wasn't quite as important as actually getting the HP buff from Gate 4. And yeah, it increases the Berserker reactive from 20 gems increase to 30 gems increase, which is obviously insanely good. An extra 10 gems means she can use her skills much easier. You always want jewel gain on a Berserker. It just naturally makes her kit less clunky, and she feels a lot better to use. However, the main reason I use Mela is for that front line right now, and with the drain attack she got from her job plus, that even further boosts it. And the more HP she has, the more effective HP regen becomes. So that is why I decided to do it in that order. So let's pull up a different example. One that worked a little bit differently. Nina. So, here's the deal with Nina, right? Her gate 5 changes her light AoE on her summoner kit to give it 100 extra cast speed. Now, the summoner kit itself is very, very slow. To cast one of those like 200 or something or so cast speed spells, that really takes a long time, and it's very hard for it to hit sometimes. By getting that increase in cast speed, I'm hoping that Nina will become a lot more easier to use. Having a higher damage, larger AoE that can actually land is a pretty big deal. In this particular case, I thought her Gate 5 was more important than her Gate 4, because that extra utility of having an extra attack that will be able to land on her kit, honestly, I think makes her better than just having the raw HP. I'm not facing any current content right now with Nina where she's like getting insta-gibbed, so it's just not super important for me to have that Gate 3 right away. Now that I've finished Gate 4 right away. Now that I've finished my Gate 5, I'm moving on to Gate 4 to max it out, because of course I'm going to max everything that my adorable Nina can. I won't, however, be maxing her Gate 3 because her leader skill just isn't that good. So, let's take a look at a different example. And I do not actually have Judith Kaigan yet, but she's a very good example of an extremely weird case. In fact, I can't even pull up her Kaigan right now, so you guys are just going to have to trust me on this one. So, Judith's, I'm actually going to pull this up so she stops talking. So Judith's Kaigan leader skill is 40% HP, 20% physical attack, 20% magic attack, and plus 20 thunder all damage, which basically means she's a 40-40 leader skill. And you might be asking, well, isn't Sharon a 50-40? Well, Sharon's a 50-40 for physical attack units. And essentially, Judith is a 40-40 all, so you can run mixed teams with her, no problem. She's arguably one of, if not the best mixed skill, offensive mixed leader skills in the game. Just a very good generic power up, but it's her Gate 5 that's the real doozy. So Judith has a skill that is a self-centered 5-diamond AoE that'll give all units around her plus 50 thunder all damage. Well, her Gate 5 upgrades this to plus 80 thunder all damage and makes the buff stackable. So theoretically, you should be able to stack this buff a couple times. She only has 3 charges for it, but point being is you can stack this buff a couple times now. That's actually nuts. So in this particular case, unless Judith is facing like imminent death, after maxing her Gate 1, I would skip all her other gates. In fact, you don't even have to max Gate 1 if you don't want to, and you can just skip the whole way down and grab yourself your Gate 3 and 5 first, and save yourself that extra time to make her a faster support, or rather a better support. The reason you do this is theoretically you don't want Judith being hit to begin with, even with all that extra HP. That's more of an insurance policy. I'm not going to 100% defend this. If you start going around and telling people that, oh, you have to max Judith in this manner, I'm going to straight up tell you you're wrong. You can max her however you want. This is just an idea of a consideration you can do when you're building her. If you run into content where all of a sudden, oh no, Judith is getting one shot, you're going to have to go back and max that Gate 1 and maybe even go onto that Gate 4. But in this particular case, you'd be rushing a certain utility on her instead of rushing the HP for the all-around skill, because she is a support. She doesn't rely on damage. She relies on giving damage to other units. A similar situation that occurred for me is with my Goal. Back when I was maxing Goal, I was still really new to Taga, and I did not max his Gate 2 first to make him a better unit. Instead, after maxing his Gate 1, I went right over to his Gate 3, and I maxed it out to give myself a really nice Dark Leader skill, one that I still constantly use. 20% HP, 30% physical attack, 20 all is a really good Dark Leader skill in a... I didn't have any good limited dark units at the time that had leader skills that made up for it, so Goal was a real lifesaver when he came around. And later on, I went back and maxed that Gate 2. So, we've kind of gone over some considerations for how you should go about maxing your gates, but we really haven't gone over material costs much. So why don't we go ahead and go over those. So, right now, I am maxing my Yorus, and as you can see, these are the gate max materials that you are going to need for gate 4. And as you can see, there is a new Kaigan material. I've been over this before. This we call them horns. um I'm not exactly sure what the real term is, but you need 2 of these horns, and then you need 2 regular sins in order to max your gate 4. And as for gate 5, I'm just gonna quick pull up my material cost here. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's 2 horns and 2 sins. Money's a little bit different. Might cost like slightly. The frag cost is a little different. Gate 5 is a little more expensive than Gate 4, but these horns and your sins are really what it's costing you. So you do have to make hard decisions. What units do I think Gate 5 is most impactful? Gate 4 is always going to be impactful because more HP and more attack is always a good thing. But there are going to be units where it's like, well, do I really need that extra HP and physical attack or magic attack on this unit when I could be using it to max the Gate 5 on, say, Judith, whose Gate 5 is absolutely nuts? These are all different things you need to think about when you choose to max your units. I cannot tell you how to max certain units. These are things that you need to make decisions on based on what kind of materials you have available to you at the time and what kind of things you are capable of obtaining. If you're relatively new to Taga, getting horns is going to be very difficult. A lot of these horns are locked into hard EX pluses and whatnot. Not all of them. They do give some free ones away every now and then, but you're probably going to end up using those up pretty quickly. So just keep that in mind when you are maxing certain things. Do note that the collab, there's a collab horn just as like there is a collab sin, and those are significantly easier to obtain. So don't worry about using those as much, but your general horns, you do want to be careful about how you spend them. As far as statues and other materials go for your Gate 4 and 5, you have pigs now, and you have horses. So, just, it's basically the same deal with the other statues. They're no easier or harder to get than the other ones. It's just you're going to need to farm them, so that's another material that you're going to have to add into your daily quests to gather. Fortunately, since these are much later, you don't use them quite as often because you're still constantly building units all the time. Did I have anything else I wanted to go over? I think I've basically gone over the points I really wanted to go over. I know a lot of people are kind of like up in the air about what order you should max all your gates in, and really this is a unit by unit thing. Certain units are going to want certain things first, but if you want the general rundown, for most units you're going to max gate 1 into gate 2. You're going to, unless your leader skill is really good, skip gate 3 and go straight into gate 4 and maybe gate 5 and then circle back to gate 3. Like, I don't think it's worth, like, I don't even think the 1 speed that you get out of the getting your gate 3 to level 3 is worth the extra 5 days that it's going to take to get your gate 4 or gate 5 max, because I think those are a lot more impactful than 1 speed, and you can always go back and max that later. And honestly, even if your unit takes 4 into that, unless you're like running major evade memes like Bolt or something, I just don't think it's worth it. Max gate 3 lasts in almost all circumstances, unless there is absolutely no substitute leader skill you can use for that particular type that you're trying to achieve, or if you're looking for a niche leader skill in order to clear certain content, that's different. But once again, this goes back to a case-by-case basis. There is no guide that can tell you how to max your units. These are all decisions you really need to make for yourself, depending on what your team looks like and what kind of materials you have on hand. So that's really all I have to say for today. I got more stuff in the works, but I was just figured I'd kind of go over this because I do receive questions about like what gates to max and stuff, and I thought that I would just kind of give a small rundown on how I think about the whole process. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not going to say someone else is wrong. There is no particularly wrong way to do it. In theory, as long as the unit is farmable and you keep farming, you will be able to max all the gates eventually. It's just the order that you max them in just determines on how quickly your unit is usable. And if the unit doesn't really need to be used for 2 months, because let's say I need to get a win, I want to get my wind team up, but there's no thunder maps to use the wind team on for 2 months. I mean, did it really matter what order you maxed them in? So thanks for listening to me, guys, and watching as always, and I hope to see you next time.